Hello, everybody. So today we have a wonderful guest named Henry Das. Wonderful dude. We talk about his book for the first quarter of the show, the different features, wealth management, all that stuff. Then we kind of just have fun and go off the deep end. And it's quite fun and entertaining. Yes. Oh. So if you've been listening consistently, you probably have noticed I did not put in my audio for this week's shows. And I've also cut it back to 2 because it's actually getting really hard to book people with the mixed COVID stuff. So I'm thinking of kicking it back to 2 episodes, depending if it gets too thin. 1. Just like your feedbacks. Is the intro making it for you guys? Does it matter? Is it like he actually did his work today? I'm just kidding. But yeah, just hit me up on Twitter, JR_Bolton_, Instagram, same thing, JR_Bolton_. I think there should be a link tree in this. I haven't gotten around to that part yet. So you can just also click that at the bottom of the description. And if you feel so inclined, you can email me at joshboltonshow@gmail.com. I will be sure to at least read the emails. I don't always keep my social media on my phone because, well, they burn up my battery and yeah. So other than that, looking forward to your feedback and enjoy. Hello. How are you doing?
Oh, hang on. Hang on 1 second here. Almost ready for prime time. There we go.
He is.
How you doing?
Doing yourself?
Good. Let me just shut my fan off.
Okay.
Probably making too much noise in the background.
I don't even notice it. You probably have your noise gate set pretty good.
Oh, you didn't notice it? Okay, good. How you doing?
Doing pretty good. So I was reading up on you. You're in coaching, financial stuff, real estate, and you make snarky shirts?
And I make snarky t-shirts, yeah. That's, you know what, I haven't made any snarky t-shirts in a while because they were the company that did my printing was shut down for months due to COVID.
Right.
So I've got lots of designs that are in the queue. It's a good reminder. I wonder if they've picked up their production.
What company did you use?
Printful?
They should be fine now.
Yeah, I would think they would be. I haven't had one done in a while. I hadn't done one since George Floyd, actually. That was the last snarky shirt I had printed. They're a good company too. They do them. They do them pretty quickly, and they don't have minimums. So
that is nice.
And you can do strike offs, like if you want to do just a sample, just to sort of see what it looks like.
You just pay them whatever for shipping and the shirt, and they'll send it to you.
Yeah, like $10, and they'll just do it for you, and you get it like 2 weeks later. So if you just kind of want to see what a design looks like, because sometimes you're not really sure. You think it looks good, and then you have it printed, and it's like, oh, that looks like crap.
Yes. Yeah, I've had that a few times. My there's the little guy. Hi, Leo.
Who's that?
My sister just showed up with her dog.
Ah, very nice.
Yeah, one of my buddies made a shirt, and it looked great on paper, and then literally it looked like crap when you printed it.
Yeah, it happens.
So,
all right.
I want to say, can you give me a little bit of your history? I've been trying to read up on you, and I feel like you could tell it better than the website could.
Probably, although I wrote the website, so
that's true.
But that's not always the case. A lot of people hire copywriters, but I don't, because I want stuff to sound like me, so there's not a disconnect. Yeah, I'm a serial entrepreneur. Been doing this for 30 years. I coach. I started coaching entrepreneurs about 10 years ago. I started coaching people in finance more like about 2 years ago when I wrote the book. I'm actually sort of pivoting out of the entrepreneurial coaching space and starting to go a little more all in on the financial space. It's just a larger audience, right? The financial coaching is really for anybody, where there's only a very small subset of the population that are actually entrepreneurs.
Right.
So it's a little more of a larger addressable market.
Right.
Plus, it's it's a little more interesting, I think, because there's so many variations.
Yeah, there's like you were saying on your website, you're trying to be a broker for real estate. That right there's one subset. Then the whole rental. Then there's stocks, commodities, futures.
Yeah, I take my my real estate exam on October 14th.
Oh,
so that'll make me a legal real estate salesperson.
Okay.
But you have to do that in the state of Connecticut. You have to do that for 2 years before you can become a broker. Which is fine.
Yeah.
Perfectly fine.
I would say it's better than most things. Like if you try to go for the bar, it's years of your life before you even can get there.
I wanted to be a lawyer when I was growing up, but then I met some lawyers and I said, nah, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, that was me. Wanted to do, I forgot what it was. I think probably like a lawyer or something. And then I meet the lawyer and they're talking all this high level stress stuff. And I'm like, why do you do this? They're like, the money. That is the only reason why we do this.
Lawyers have a particular way of thinking, kind of a lawyerly way. And I don't really think that way.
Yeah, you have to question everything. Even if you know it's right, you have to question it.
They have like little niches and a niche in a niche. When you hire a lawyer, it's sort of like you're hiring a cab driver. And then he starts his meter. And then as you're driving, he picks up a bunch of other cab drivers who also bring their own meters with them. And before you know it, you're in a cab full of cab drivers, all with different meters going, and you have to pay all their bills. It's pretty comical, I have to say. I mean, my approach has always been that they're a blunt tool, right? They're as capable as taking out an eye as hammering a nail, as I often say. It's really what they are. So what I will do when it comes to attorneys is I'll say, look, as an entrepreneur, I know what I want to do. You got to tell me whether it's kosher or not. Right.
Pretty much.
That's all I'm asking you to do. What are the legal ramifications of what it is that I'm about to do? Exactly. I don't ask them for advice. Just run it through the gauntlet and tell me, and then I'll make the decision.
Will I get in trouble for this? Yes or no? If it's no, good. How far can I push it then?
It's more like, how much trouble am I going to get in for doing this? And is it worth the risk that's involved?
Right. Yeah, that's I would say there's so many things that can go against an entrepreneur. It's like, is it worth the risk?
Well, that's a large part of what you have to do, not only as an entrepreneur, but just as a person managing your affairs or managing your finances. You've got to measure risk, and a lot of people don't have any idea how to do that, or they're using the wrong factors, or they're ignoring it. They're saying, well, I know that this is risky, but I'm okay with it. And then it goes against them and they're like, well, maybe they weren't quite so okay with it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So then let's just get into that. Tell me about your book, because I'm believing in that's financials.
My book is called FQ Financial Intelligence.
Right.
So the idea is, a lot of people talk about financial literacy. And I always say, well, literacy is what's the technical definition of that? It's your ability to read and write. Well, that's great. I know lots of people who can read and write, but that doesn't mean that they've ever created a stitch of original content or even anything that's particularly interesting. Where intelligence is more like taking those tools and, weaving a tapestry with it, building a strategic plan. Pivoting when you need to, doubling down on the occasion where it merits, but then moving into scarcity when the tide goes out. All these different things require a plastic, a nimble mind. There's no formulaic approach. Can't just buy an index fund, right? Oh, I'll invest in the market. I'll buy an index fund. I can't even tell you how many people I've spoken to about that. And I'll ask them, do you even know what it is?
Nah, but I hear it all the time from Warren Buffett. Just buy the S&P 500.
Yeah, just buy the S&P 500. Oh, isn't that wonderful? Well, that's great. When you're worth $100 billion, right, you can say whatever the hell you want to say. Right? I mean, come on. No, you didn't get to be worth $100 billion because you invested in index funds. It's disrespectful to people. Right? Mm-hmm. It's just, oh, yeah, just do that and everything will be fine. Nonsense. It's just total, utter nonsense. And I like Warren Buffett, and he says a lot of interesting stuff. But that ain't one of them, in my opinion. Right? It just isn't. It's an oversimplification. Now, I'm not trying to create a world that's super complicated for people. One of the place that I start with is the first chapter of my book, The Psychology of Money. Okay. Where's your head at when it comes to money? Are you living in scarcity? Are you living in abundance? Are you somewhere in between? It's the first place I start when we do financial coaching, because as I've said a million times, I can teach you how to trade the stock market. But if you're too gun shy to ever put money in play, you're not going to be able to make money in the market. Sure, it's important to know how markets work. Not everybody needs to be a stock trader. Most people will not make a lot of money out of it because they'll make a lot of mistakes, and they will double down when it's not warranted, or they will circle the wagons and be really super conservative when they actually should be risk on. Mm-hmm. So these are the type of things that I teach you. But there's trillions of dollars in the stock market that affects everything that you do. Mm-hmm. Even if you're in the commodity business or the real estate business or just your day-to-day job, right? What happens when the market tanks? Unemployment follows. It just does. Mm-hmm. So you need to be clued into that. What exactly is the market doing? What are the financial markets? What are the bond markets? What are the commodity markets? And then connecting the dots in an intelligent fashion into your own life.
Right. Yeah, no, that's 100% true. So speaking of the market crash, what got me interested in finances and all that and the market was the March 2020 crash.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, which crash are you talking about?
The March 2020 crash, because it was super confusing. I'm watching people crying like Satan has shitted everywhere, and then people are dancing in the street like it's the best thing since sex, and I'm like, what the hell is going on here?
I was in the latter, although I wouldn't say it was the best thing since sex. Depends on the kind of sex that you've been having. Generally, it's better with another person, although that's not mandatory, from my understanding.
You got a handy friend.
Yeah, I wrote out that I felt it was a generational buy signal.
I think another one's coming. I personally think another's coming.
Well, I write a twice monthly newsletter. In fact, I was working on my September 15th, even though today is September 17th. I'm a couple days tardy because I was away for 2 weeks. So I write I send it out around the 1st of the month and around the 15th of the month. And I wrote to people back then in March and April. I'm saying, yeah, this is an opportunity. Now, it doesn't mean you need to push all your chips into the center of the table. But perfectly good companies were put on sale. But turning to today's charts, and I wrote about something called the Shiller PE on my September 1st newsletter. And the Shiller PE, which is PE stands for price earnings. And I don't want to get too technical with people, but very simple metric for valuing stocks is the price that the stock is selling for versus, what they earn, right? What are they making money wise? And it's really good as a comparative measure. So if I want to compare Apple to, say, Amazon, Apple's PE is in the 20 area, where Amazon's might be in the 200 area. The higher the number, the more expensive it is.
Right.
It's a ratio of the price to the earnings. It doesn't tell you everything that you need to know, but it's a good comparative measure. Now the PEs are generally calculated, on a 12-month, either 12 months looking forward or 6 months looking back, 6 months looking forward, or the common one is the past 12 months. Well, what Shiller did, and Robert Shiller is a Nobel Prize winning economist. He has the Case-Shiller Housing Index, done a lot of metrics. He's a Yale professor, pretty top-notch guy. He said, well, let's look back at 10 years. Right. Let's look at 10 years earning and see what that trend looked like. That way it'll flatten out a lot of the bumps and it won't be so myopic as to look at something that's just so close range. So I use that as a metric, and it's really stretched. It has never been higher except for the dot bomb, right? 2000.
Yeah.
That particular overbought market. However, when you look at the 1 year PE, it doesn't look as stretched. So over the long term, the market is quite stretched, but over the short term, maybe not so much. And one of the things that I talk about in my book, and one of the things that all the master traders that I know look at when they're trading, is you've got to look in multiple time frames. You can't just look in a daily chart. You got to look at a weekly chart too. I even have a monthly chart on my charts, so I can look at the trend. So I'm looking at the long-term trend, a little shorter-term trend, the daily trend. And then if you're a day trader or a scalp trader, you're looking at maybe a 30-minute or a 5-minute chart, right? Because your plan isn't to buy now and hold it for days, weeks, or months. Your plan is to buy in the morning and sell in the afternoon, right? Or short in the morning and cover in the afternoon. Right. So again, that depends on what your goals are. I tend to be a position trader or a longer term trader. I'll buy something. I like to buy good stuff. I like to hold it for a long time. And I'll only really sell if I think the fundamentals have broken down and something has systemically changed. And a company that I liked 5 years ago, I don't like so much anymore. Or I want to repurpose that capital into the new kid on the block, the flavor of the month that I think has more upside potential. And I have a couple of stocks like that. I have stocks that are in the military industrial complex that were rock stars during the last Republican administration. But now that we're not fighting any wars anymore, they've kind of flatlined. Right? They just have, right?
Yeah. So when I bought everything was actually earlier this year, when still there was like fear in the market, and I bought a lot of real estate and stuff like that, and just was snatching up everything. And that's where one of my coworkers, because they heard I was trading, and they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, right now you don't look at the fundamentals, just buy and close your eyes, because there nothing makes sense right now.
Well, that's the buy high, sell higher idea, or the greater fool theory, which is I don't have to worry about it because I know that the world is full of people who are more foolish than I am. Right. So that's like the crypto market, right?
Oh, the crypto market's completely rigged too.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of massive insanity. Yet I know plenty of people who made tons of money, or GameStop or AMC or all these other meme stocks, as they're called, the Reddit stocks. It's an old-fashioned pump and dump.
That's all it is.
Right. So you want to be in that? That's great. That's not really what I consider to be a cogent long-term excuse me. A cogent long-term strategy for securing wealth, in my opinion. Again, that just might be a quick hitter that you get in and you get out. Or maybe you want to do an options trade on that so that if it expires worthless, and 3 out of 4 options trades will expire worthless, not that big a deal.
Right.
Not a lot of capital at risk. Maybe there's a 3-to-1, 4-to-1, 5-to-1 payoff on it. You do the analysis on it. That's a short-term scalp trade or a swing trade. Great. Let's do that. But I'm talking about a long slog, right? Years, decades, till you get to the point where you get to be my age. And I'm a 62-year-old boomer who's been investing since I was a 17-year-old high schooler, to the point where you've got a big enough portfolio that you can de-risk and still be able to have enough money to live a very nice life.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, isn't that kind of what the end game is?
I think all who are looking for financial freedom, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not 100% sure. Some people are looking for an increase in their lifestyle. They want more disposable income so that they can spend it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's not necessarily going to ensure a long-term financial health for you. My wife and I, we've been married. We just celebrated our 30th wedding anniversary on January 1st. And, looking back over it, our lifestyle has stayed pretty much the same for most of our adult life.
Okay.
It's never gone, we every couple of years we'll go on a very expensive trip somewhere, but we don't do it all the time.
Right.
I know people who do it 3 times a year.
Yeah.
But if they lose their job, they don't do that anymore. Because that's the only thing that's the fact that they have income coming in is the only thing that allows them to live the lifestyle that they have. In other words, what I wrote about is a strong balance sheet is a much better indicator of the health of any kind of entity, whether it be you as an individual or a company, than their P&L.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Just is. And P&L meaning profit and loss. Right.
Right. Yeah, that's like the biggest one, because I've been doing like a crash course for the last year and a half, and I realized you can technically look poor on paper, but be extremely wealthy, and it's one of those, you just have to know the rules of the market to achieve that.
Well, there's an acronym. It's called Henry.
Okay.
Right. High earner, not rich yet.
Okay.
Right. There are a lot of people who are in that particular boat. High earner, not rich yet. So my goal is to fix the second half of that, the not rich yet part. And that will be accumulating assets.
So
building your net worth.
I'm going to say, so other than stocks, real estate, what else do you recommend people learn and get into?
Entrepreneurship, I guess, would be number one, because of all the people that are at the top of the pyramid in terms of the net worth, the so-called 1%ers, or the 0.01 or the 0.0001 percenters.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them can trace their roots back to entrepreneurship. Right. The tax system in this country is, I could go on a whole long soapbox about how it's broken beyond repair. I mean, I think most people know that. The tax burden has systematically been shifted over the past probably 5 decades, maybe 6 decades. It's systematically been shifted from the ultra wealthy to the wealthy down pretty much to the middle class.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a W-2 wage earner, if you're somebody who gets a paycheck, you're having your taxes withheld, your FICA, your UI, right, unemployment insurance, disability, all those things come off the top.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're an entrepreneur and you run your own business, there are myriad ways that you can circumvent all of those different rules. In addition to that, you can put a lot more money away into retirement plans as a business owner than you can as an individual. A few weeks ago, I wrote about an article that I read about Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel was the one of the founders of PayPal.
Mm-hmm.
along with, I guess, Elon Musk and a few other people. Peter Thiel has $5 billion in a Roth IRA.
Congress is totally, I've been seeing so many articles, they're planning on just like destroying the Roth so they can get that money.
Yeah. Well, the Roth was the greatest thing ever invented, and that's why they want to destroy it. But he did an interesting thing. He put $2,000 in a Roth IRA back in 1998, I think. That was the entire contribution for that $5 billion. Then he put 1.7 million shares of PayPal valued at 0.000001 cent. $1,700 worth of this stuff to make 1.7 million shares of PayPal, and parked those in his Roth IRA. Well, you and I can't do that. As an entrepreneur, as a business insider, he could. And over that past 25 years, that $1,700 has ballooned into $5 billion.
Right.
When he takes that money out, it's tax-free. It's free of taxes. Well, unless they decide to change the rules. Right. But going back to the whole idea of the tax burden is that's your biggest overhead. It's amazing when I talk to people and I ask them what their biggest expense is. Oh, my rent, my mortgage. It's like, no, taxes is your biggest expense. There's not even a close second.
Right.
Right. Second is probably insurance, unless you have a gigantic mortgage. Insurance is probably your second biggest expense. Then your third biggest might be a mortgage. But for many years, I didn't have a mortgage. So didn't even register. We just bought a house recently. So now I'm back in the mortgage business, but money is so cheap at 3%. It's like, why not? I make 15% on my money. So if I can borrow it for 3%, there's an arbitrage opportunity there. Yeah, let's do that. I'll do that all day long. Mm-hmm. So that tax burden has now been shifted down to the middle class. And then each year that goes by, they keep eroding it more and more. They put the $10,000 SALT limit, right? State and local tax, right? They put caps on how large your mortgage can be for your mortgage interest. Those don't affect the ultra wealthy people in the slightest.
No.
If you're Jeff Bezos, you're not even paying income tax, which we learned from the ProPublica report. All those ultra wealthy people, none of them, because they don't have to, because their assets, they can borrow against their assets. So when you borrow against your assets, that's not income. So right. You don't pay tax on that. So if you've got billions of dollars put away, you can borrow millions and millions of dollars collateralized by that money, which has grown tax-free because it hasn't been taxed along the line, because the growth of an asset doesn't get taxed. You buy a stock, you put it in, you just hold it forever. Sure, your dividends will get taxed. But if you buy Facebook, let's say, which doesn't pay a dividend, right? And you buy it at $28, whatever. I remember I was in Hong Kong when that thing went public. I think it was $35 was the drop price. Now it's what, $3.50? I guess.
Something.
Yeah. Pays no dividend. So if you bought it, however long ago that was, 10 years ago, you've made a 10x on it, and you haven't paid a nickel in tax, assuming that you haven't sold any of it. And that just grows and grows and grows and grows. Right. And then you say, oh, you know what? I'll just take a margin loan against it. I'll pay a small amount of interest. I'll take all that money and I'll use that to live. But I never paid any taxes on anything.
Right. And that's the one thing Congress will never fully understand, or they're intentionally avoiding that.
The purpose of things like the estate tax and income taxes, when they used to have a nominal rate that was like 90%. There was a famous case in the UK where someone was taxed at 105%.
What the fuck?
Yeah, believe me, real stuff. There's stories about, the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. The Rolling Stones had to record Exile in Main Street in 1971 in France because they had to flee Britain because of tax complications, right? These are rock stars, right? And they had to flee. So So the tax rates were so high and so onerous that people literally had to change domiciles. But the purpose of that was to prevent the situation that we have now. The purpose of the estate tax, the purpose of those super high income taxes was to prevent dynastic wealth. And it really worked well for a long, long, long time. And it ended with the 86 tax law with Ronald Reagan, where they changed a lot of that stuff. Before that, you didn't have billionaires, but now you have a whole billionaire class. And then you add in Citizens United, which was the landmark Supreme Court case, which basically uncapped political contributions. And now you have a Congress that's captive to the billionaire class. Mm-hmm. And they're not going to do anything that's going to change anything. And who ends up losing is the middle class of society. They end up paying the freight for everything.
Yep.
And when I was a kid, the top 1% held less than 10% of the assets in this country. Now it's approaching 40%. In fact, the 8 wealthiest people in America have more assets than the bottom half of this country.
Yeah, this is something like if you combined it all together, you could like almost give a house, like every house $5 million and it still be plenty left over.
Yeah, it's scary. It's and I'm not necessarily in favor of that, of guaranteed income and stuff and all that sort of stuff. That's a topic for a different day. But an imbalance like this leads to a revolution.
We're already seeing it.
Yeah, you're seeing it. You're seeing it in the whole left-right culture war stuff that's going on, right? The coasts versus, middle America, the Trumpers, the climate deniers, the anti-vaxxers, all that bifurcation of this country all comes down to economics. Mm-hmm. It just does. And it's just getting wider and wider. It will end very badly whenever it ends. It'll end badly.
I would say, have you read The Fourth Turning?
No. What is that?
It's a generational cycle of America. Well, it kind of applies to any culture, but specifically was America. And from his rules and how he explained it, it's hysterical. He called everything for this fourth turning. He said there's going to be a virus that's going to kill a lot of people. There will be political unrest and riots. The only one he got wrong, but I don't blame him too much. It could happen, actually, is the IRS is hacked and overtaken by foreign terrorist entities.
What is it called? The fourth what?
The fourth turning.
The fourth turning. Huh. That's a new one I made. But I'll The Fourth Turning, An American Prophecy. When was it written?
Late 80s, early 90s.
Interesting. Sort of a Notre Dame kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Really? Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, we have ample history to go back and look at empires that rose and fell. The Romans, the Greeks, the Ottomans, the Phoenicians. I mean, many of them had very robust societies that lasted for generations. Mm-hmm. Our country is not even 250 years old yet. We're Johnny come lately, but we are sowing the seeds of our own demise, and people have to realize that. But what do you do? Because if you focus on it too much, you get depressed.
Right.
Right.
But if you don't keep in touch, you can also get in trouble. So it's like the kind of look from afar kind of thing.
Well, one of the Achilles heel for mankind, in my opinion, is our tiny lifespans, right? Because we only live 80 years, if we're lucky.
If we're lucky,
and that's in a Western society. The lifespan much shorter in other parts of the world, and that 80 years is a handicap for us because we're not forwardly thinking. If we lived for 800 years, we could think a little bit more about what it is that we're doing today impacting us later on down the line. Mm-hmm. But if you're only going to live 80 years, I'm 62. I might have 20 decent years left. So I could say, yeah, I know that climate change is here and we're destroying the earth, but I'm not going to be around to see that. So do I care?
Right.
I'll just keep burning up all that cheap gasoline and putting it into the world because I don't give a crap, because I'll be gone. Right. Politicians are the same way. They're looking through a microscope instead of a telescope. So their decisions are colored by that, whether they care to admit it or not. And there are consequences, right? If you're an oil company executive, you're like, dude, I got to keep digging up the oil because that's my livelihood. Yeah, I know we're destroying the world and that we should be investing in alternatives, but heck, it ain't going to happen in my lifetime. So why should I worry about it? I want what's mine while I'm here. What happens after I'm gone?
Not my business.
I don't care.
Yep.
It's a horrible way to look at the world. Because I don't, I'm only teasing a little bit. I'm absolutely looking at what my legacy is. What am I going to leave behind? I just I just drove 5,000 miles. I drove all the way out to Utah to visit my youngest son and to swap cars with him. Now, I burned a ton of fossil fuels doing this, but the point of the exercise was I gave him a more economical car for him to have at college. I brought my big ass truck back here, which I want to then trade in and get something electric. So I had an ulterior motive. Even though electric cars are relatively expensive compared to gas cars, we have to get rid of gasoline powered vehicles as a society.
Right.
We simply have to. We can no longer continue to do this.
Mm-hmm. No, and I had a lady on, and that's what she was saying. But the funny thing, she was going on about how you need to ride a bike, and I'm like, okay, question. Here in California, you can literally be killed by walking on the sidewalk. Some random ass motherfucker is gonna run you over. I'm like, so you're telling me to risk my life, and maybe a fraction of a percent I will help this world, kind of thing. I'm like, no, I'd rather drive my car. At least I know if I get hit, I'm not going to instantly die.
I'm a bike rider from way back. I used to ride my bike all over New York City. I lived in New York City for 25 years. I almost sacrificed life and limb many times to ride a bicycle. I've rebuilt bicycles. I've done all that stuff. I'm all about that. But it's, for most people, it's not a practical consideration.
Right.
It really just isn't. But yeah, I'm with you. Right. Yeah. You should, the government should subsidize the purchase of a bicycle for you to use as your main commuting vehicle.
There's a lot of,
but I live on a dirt road in the country. I mean, my commute is 10 steps down my hallway because I work from home. So, and I have for many years, long before the pandemic. So, I've been doing my fair share to not commuting by not driving anywhere. All of these little things, everybody needs to do. Now, the question is, are you going to get 1.5 billion Chinese people to change their habits? Because they're the biggest polluters that we have. Let's face it. That's just statistical.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it used to be America, but it's not. And they're burning high sulfur coal over there because they're trying to improve their status because they were in a cultural revolution for decades. So they're coming from way behind to try to become a player. No one's going to tell them that, hey, you're killing the earth by doing this. Well, we were a little late to the game, but now that we're here, we're just going to do what we need to do to improve our status. Well, that's not going to help us at all as a planet. Just not.
That was actually the biggest one I told her. I was like, okay, that's great. Yeah, California or America, we're whatever, ranked 3 or 4. But I'm like, what about India and China? They're outright burning plastic and coal. Yeah. And the funny thing, she's like, oh, that's their problem. I'm like, no, whatever.
No, that's our problem. The Great Pacific Garbage Patch is our problem, even though I live in Connecticut.
Right.
It's all interwoven. So now you look at this nationalistic fervor that you see going on across the globe, and with the 4 years of Trump here, it's all like, me, close the borders, blah blah blah. It's like, no, the world is interconnected.
Yeah, we're globalized.
It doesn't operate that way. right? What happens here, what happens in China, what happens in India, what happens in Africa affects people through, and what happens in the Amazon affects people everywhere. But you're trying to get two people in Congress from across the aisle to cooperate now. You're trying to get 7.5 billion people to cooperate for a common good. It's not going to happen, dude.
No, it's not. And that's the sad part.
It is sad. But that doesn't mean that you can't do your little part. I don't have to schlep halfway across the country to go get my big Chevy truck to bring it back here to then trade it in for an electric vehicle. I don't have to do that. But my conscience tells me that every little bit that I do in one way or the other is going to help and is going to make me feel better. And let's face it, people are driven exclusively by self-interest.
Yes.
Not group interest, self-interest.
That was one thing. I actually would like to hear your take. I heard it a while ago, like a carbon tax, universal over everyone. The only problem I saw with that, I'm like, the air quote wealthy ain't going to take a loss like that. They'll just hand off the bill to someone else. They're not going to take a loss. And it just becomes this whole cycle kind of thing where you essentially wreck the whole economy, but at least you save the earth.
Well, carbon tax is sort of reminds me of the payroll tax they have in Major League Baseball.
Okay.
Right? They didn't want to put a hard salary cap in like they have in the NBA or the NFL, right? Just for whatever reason, baseball just didn't want to do that. So we just added this luxury tax. But then what happened? The big market teams like the Dodgers and the Yankees would say, well, you know what? It's expensive, but we'll pay the $50 million because we want to win, because we're the Dodgers and we're the Yankees and we want to win. And that's what will happen with the carbon tax is they'll just simply say, the companies that have the money will just say, you know what? We'll just pay it.
Okay.
Is that getting you where you want to go? No. Just like a Paris Accord without penalty, just saying that, well, this is a voluntary compliance.
That's not going to do much.
That's toothless, right? It's the difference. I wrote about this when I was in the book about talking about certified financial planners, right? There's a concept in the finance world called the fiduciary, right? So if you're the executor of an estate, somebody dies, and I have to go to a funeral tomorrow because a good friend of mine's wife, 53 years old, just dropped dead. Not even COVID, out of a clear blue sky, like a lightning bolt.
One of my family members, similar thing happened, just randomly dropped. Not COVID.
No, not COVID. Just went to ride on her exercise bike, and then next thing you know, she's dead. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
So someone has to be the executor for that estate. And that's a fiduciary responsibility, which basically means that you're on the hook, right? You got to act in the best interest of the client. You're required by law. And if not, there are penalties. Well, a certified financial planner is not a fiduciary. They have a code of ethics that says you must
do everything you
operate everything you can. But it's not binding.
Right.
So it's worthless. It's window dressing. It's puffery, right? And all of these other things without a penalty for non-compliance, a significant penalty for non-compliance, people are not going to comply.
Nope.
Or they may comply for a little while, but once it becomes inconvenient or starts affecting their quarterly profits, they'll say, oh, well, this is an easy place for us to kind of move some money around. We'll move it around in the whole carbon arena. No. If you want to start dealing with truly making changes, there's going to be pain involved. And another universal concept is that people will seek pleasure and avoid pain.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's just hard coded in us. There's no, you can't change that.
That's just DNA. Yeah, exactly. That's just part of the species.
How we've survived and evolved.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some other chapters we can go into on your book?
Well, the way I structured the book is I call them three acts because I'm a screenwriter. I've written 11 screenplays. I have an idea. On my long drive, we listened to Obama's book and we listened to the book about the CRISPR technology from Walter Isaacson called The Code Breaker. It's about Jennifer Doudna, who won the Nobel Prize for coming up with the gene editing that directly led to the mRNA vaccines from Moderna. And so I do a lot of things that adhere to that 3-act structure, which is, if you've seen any movie, there's a first act and there's an inciting incident. And then there's a second act, which is the long middle part. And then there's the third act where things wind down. So I kind of constructed the book and I built the book as a course more than a book. I kind of backed into the book. I built it as a course. I tested it as a course for me to teach. And then I was convinced by a bunch of people that said, you should just turn this into a book, which was like a year-long exercise to turn it into a book. So the first act is kind of nuts and bolts stuff, psychology of money, something that I call the thick green line, which measures your age versus your net worth and sort of paints the arc of how your net worth is going to go up and down as you age. And eventually we'll hit a peak in theory at retirement age. And then you'll kind of bleed that money out and then you'll die and leave a bunch of money perhaps. Or as they say in The Millionaire Next Door, the last check that you ever write should be to the undertaker and it should bounce, right? The second act is all the stuff that's investment related, stocks, fundamental trading, technical trading, bonds, commodities, crypto, real estate, all of the places that during that fat part of your earning years, right? Your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, where you're making all your money, where are you going to put it? All these different places that you can put that money. What are the risks involved? How do you trade them? What are you interested in? And then the third act was all the kind of odds and ends. Social Security, your last will and testament, Medicare, retirement accounts, all of those tactical bits and pieces. I have a chapter I call Gypsies, Tramps, and Thieves, which is all the different ways that people are trying to take your money from you. All the scams, Ponzi schemes, NLMs. There's a zillion of them. Every day there's another scam going on. I just read a article about a woman who got 12 years in jail because she was running a coupon scam. She was counterfeiting coupons. Okay. Counterfeited $31 million worth of coupons.
Damn.
They found when they finally busted her, they found $1 million worth of coupons. They found templates for 13,000 different coupon, like Photoshop templates on her computer.
And will she sell them online or something?
Yeah, it's like a whole online. Apparently there's a whole subculture. Excuse me, I got a little chest cold. There's a whole subculture of people who are like ultra couponing. In fact, I think there's a TV show that's called Ultimate Couponing.
Something like that. Yeah. It didn't last long.
Didn't last very long, but I mean, that's not what the purpose of coupons are. But again, as soon as you introduce human beings into anything, they will subjugate whatever it is that you're trying to do. Right.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. You have to edit that out. So those are the 18 chapters, like six chapters that really set the framework. So by the end of the first act, you should have your balance sheet, your income statement. You should sort of know what your contingent liabilities are, right? So what's coming down the line in terms of kids' college education, retirement planning, maybe weddings, whatever they may be. You're 35 years old, but you've got a bunch of young kids, and you've got to look at where things are heading. Mm-hmm. And then you build a framework and you build a plan, right? That's where I come in to help you. If I work with you one-on-one, That's what I do. And then you're going to have to execute that plan for the rest of your life.
Pretty much.
There's no pretty much about it. You're never going to, unless you win a sweepstakes or all of a sudden get some boatload of money. And even if you do, you're still going to have to manage that. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. A huge number of lotto winners end up broke within relatively short order, something like 10 years.
I thought it was more like 5.
It could be more like 5 years. I was being generous.
I thought it was last I heard is between 5 to 3 years. Essentially, they hand out the money and never save any for themselves.
But the best course of action, if you win like a mega sweepstakes, is to not take the lump sum payout.
Yeah, isn't
actually take the annuity.
Also, don't they pay you out like monthly kind of thing?
Well, you have a choice, right? When you can get a lump sum payment. So if you win $100 million lottery, you have a choice. You can take a 20-year annuity. So they'll pay you basically 1/20 of it each year for the next 20 years. Or you can take a lesser amount in a lump sum.
The annuity sounds better.
Right. So instead of taking the 100 million, they're going to give you 60 million, but they're going to give it to you all up front. Right. Like we were watching America's Got Talent.
Mm-hmm.
Right. My wife loves those kind of shows, so we watch all of them. And I find them, they're kind of a guilty pleasure. Sometimes they're interesting. Sometimes it's like they're amateurish. But I was watching it, and their prize is $1 million plus a show in Vegas, right? So a few years ago, I was watching it, and then it was the finale, and they picked the winner. And then they had a little slide at the end of it that kind of, with all this fine print. And I remember I said, wait, we got to stop. And I stopped it and I backed it up and I froze the page. I paused the page so that I could read all that fine print. It's a 40-year annuity that they're giving you. That $1 million prize that they constantly, Terry Crews is up there and the winner of the $1 million. That's a 40-year annuity.
Oh, so someone for you, like your age, that would be a terrible deal.
Well, you could sell it. I mean, if you get a 40-year annuity, you could sell that. I mean, people are in the business of going out there and buying your structured settlements, which is another way that you can make money. If you've got a 40-year annuity for $1 million, it's basically going to pay you $25,000 a year. So somebody could say, fine, I'll give you $250,000 for that today.
Okay.
And then I'm going to buy that income stream. So I'll lay out $250,000, but in return for that, I'm basically going to get $25,000 a year for the next 40 years. Now I just made up that number, 250. Right. It's probably pretty close to what would be a realistic payout for that. And then you're going to get that 250 as a balloon payment. Then you're going to pay tax on it, which is going to be about 40%. So that $1 million thing is probably worth $170,000 in your pocket.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound quite as sexy when they say, and the winner of our $170,000 prize, right?
Yeah.
But these are the kind of things that a financial intelligent person should be thinking when they look at the return on any sort of investment that's promised to them. Well, what does it really mean? And then if I factor in things like inflation and taxes and such, what am I really getting?
Right. Probably, yeah. If you don't do it right, nothing.
Yeah. Sometimes less than nothing.
Yeah. Your money.
It's like going on a game show. A friend of ours many years ago, she was at an event, a charity event, and she won the grand prize. It was a $65,000 Lexus.
Oh yeah, but you owe taxes on that when you get it.
First of all, that's $65,000 in income. Then when you want to register it, you got to pay that. Right? You start doing all the math, and it's like, this is a white elephant. She just sold the thing. That's all. She said, I have no use for this. She just sold it. And I think she netted maybe $25,000 when it was all said and done.
Honestly, but when you receive it, you get taxed. When you sell it, you get taxed.
When you try to register it, you get taxed. right?
Yeah.
You register in the state, and she was in New Jersey. Registered state in New Jersey, you're gonna have to pay the sales tax on it, right? Because you got it for free.
But they're like the value is 65,000, so it's like you owe whatever on 65,000.
It makes a wonderful Twitter headline to put the $1 million winner, but then when you drill down into it, you start realizing it kind of takes a lot of the starch out of it. It's not quite so much fun anymore when you start doing the math on it. And a lot of financial intelligence stuff is kind of a killjoy, right? It's like, oh, I liked it better when it was really cool and a big number and whatever. But now you're ruining it for me. And I'm sorry, my job isn't to ruin it for you. It's just for you to get your head out of the clouds and live in the real world.
Exactly. Yeah, that was the biggest one when I was learning trading and business. All my coworkers were like, "Oh, it's gonna be great. You're gonna be a billionaire in like a couple years." I'm like, "No." I said, realistically, that's even for like someone like Jeff Bezos, that's like a 1 in a trillion shot.
Yeah, for every Jeff Bezos, there's a million people who tried and failed.
Yeah, it's one of those. It's all about right time, right place, who you know, what you can do. You can't predict this stuff.
No, in the real estate business, the catchphrase is, what are the 3 most important things? Location, location, location. Right? You've heard that. You've heard that before. And I say no, no, those are not the 3 most important things at all. The 3 most important things are timing, timing, timing.
And I've had a few apartment syndicate guys come on, and they're like, how they phrased it to me, they never went into the details, but essentially timing's nice, but it's about how quick you can execute it. So all of them have a broker on the call, a lawyer on call. They set up an LLC for it, and then have an agent in the field signing it all off.
What do you think timing is?
That
right. Timing is having the ability to pull the trigger immediately. Right. Recognizing that it's time to act and then actually acting. Yeah. Timing is 100% of what it is. Because the best location in the world is not going to save your butt if the tide goes out.
Right.
It's just not.
Yeah.
Right. And if your timing is right, you can sell dogs. Look at the current real estate market that there is now. And you see people paying $1 million over ask.
Yeah.
For a house that in a normal market might sit for 6 months. That's timing. Nothing to do with location.
Location helps though, but it's not. Yeah, it's timing.
Yeah, but I'm not saying that location doesn't come as a factor, but you can't tell me that it is the number one thing 3 times over, because it just isn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Having bought and sold quite a bit of real estate over the years, I can vouch for that.
So then, okay. Do you have houses right now you're renting too?
I don't actually. I'm getting my real estate license with the idea that I don't want to be the world's oldest or third oldest real estate salesperson, but I'll go out and sell if I need to. I can sit on the license for 2 years, do some additional courses, and then become a broker. I don't actually have to transact any business at all for 2 years, as long as I do another like 30 hours of just god awful Zoom calls. I had to do 60 hours of Zoom calls for the state of Connecticut just to qualify to take the test. So they have their requirements. They're very low common denominator requirements. I want to get access to the MLS. I want to be able to peek behind the curtain, because when it comes to timing, it's a quick and the dead. So by the time it gets to Zillow or Realtor.com, you're lumped in with every other guy on the street or gal on the street. Where once you become a real estate professional, it's a different ballgame. You should have greater access, which should allow for better timing.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, this one lady, I was helping my aunt move to Idaho, and she's the agent. I think she was going for a broker too. And that's where I was just asking out of curiosity. I'm like, I don't have money, but I'm just curious. Local, what's a general price? She pulls up this website and says, "Oh, the house, like whatever, like two over going up for sale right now." But how do you know that? She's like, "Oh, I get like a week's heads up before everyone else."
Yeah.
All of us agents who have this whatever, we get like a week's heads up before everyone else.
The best deals get cherry picked by the pros before they ever make it to the street. They just do.
And that's where I asked her, I'm like, okay, I mean, I don't have the money. It's not like I can get a loan or anything, but I'm like, how much is he going for? She's like, surprisingly, it's quite underpriced. She's like, I bet if it hits Zillow, it's gone. They're going to overpay everything.
Yeah, well, that's the nature of the market. Although the market has cooled off as we head into the fall of this year. We bought this house in Connecticut. We saw it on Columbus Day of last year, so almost a year ago. And that was kind of the height of the frenzy, where pretty much any unpolished turd that you put out on the market was getting multiple bids above asked. Mm-hmm. That was COVID panic. Well, now it's a year later. We're still in the midst of COVID. I would argue that COVID now is actually worse than it was a year ago, because now we know a lot about it where before we didn't. And we know a lot about it, and people are still behaving massively stupidly. And we have an antidote. We have a vaccine.
Have you taken it?
Oh, yeah. I took it. I got my first dose in February.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I got mine in like March. I was supposed to go to Italy in August, actually, but EU was just like, nah, we're good. You can't come. I'm like, shit. So, yeah.
No, I'm a type 2 diabetic. Although I wasn't in a particular rush. I hunkered down from March of 20 all the way through that summer and fall of 2020. I didn't even go to the store. I wouldn't go to Costco or the supermarket. I basically, because I'm at that time I was a 61-year-old type 2 diabetic, so I'm in a high risk category. So my oldest son got COVID. When he got COVID, it's like we have a little apartment in New York City. I said, you got to go quarantine yourself there. Mm-hmm. So I said, you just got to go back to the city, because he was living at home with us. I said, you got to go back to the city and stay there until the all clear. Those are just the rules of the game. And then when the vaccines started coming out at the beginning of 2021, I said, I'll just wait in line, Mm-hmm. And then a friend of mine texted me something that said Rite Aid has it. And it did. And since I was a type 2 with a comorbidity, I qualified, and I went down there and got the shot. There was nobody there, nobody waiting in line, nobody clamoring. Mm-hmm. Went in, got my shot. A month later, went back and got the second shot. And then all my kids got the vaccine. But now we're living in this world where it's become it's basically become a pandemic for the unvaccinated.
It has. Well, especially because how it's gone around and mutated. The vaccine is good, but even with Delta, it's going to wreck a lot.
Well, what's happened is the vaccinated people, this is just my personal theory, I'm not a scientist, but if you think about it, they create kind of a wall around the virus. The virus wants to keep finding more people. And since the unvaccinated people tend to cluster together, again, we're in this culture war thing, right? Mm-hmm. The unvaxxed, they live in the red states and they don't wear masks, and so it's now concentrated there. And once it's there, it just runs rampant. Mm-hmm. Right. But it's bouncing off all the vaccinated people. They're almost like this ring that's kind of keeping it there so it can just feast. And it's just a feast on people as long as they still choose to, like we talked about, climate deniers. There's no question that there is climate change, and that it's caused by human beings.
100%.
And it's astounding. It is, when you think about it, if the Earth is billions of years old, which, the common thinking is that it is. And we've only been burning fossil fuels. Fossil fuels in America were discovered in 1865 in Titusville, Pennsylvania.
Right. But I think in general, we've been burning oil, but not to the efficiency that we have been.
Even if it goes back a couple hundred years, it's not even a cosmic blink of an eye.
Right.
It's not even measurable on a cosmic timeline how long man has been here. Right. There's an old thing that says if all of time is as tall as the Empire State Building, man's time, I think dinosaurs' time is about the width of a piece of paper on top of the Empire State Building, and man is like a molecule.
Yeah,
something like that. I mean, we don't even register. And so think about the fragility of Earth, that we, in such an infinitesimal period of time, have actually mucked up the planet.
Well, this is the one thing I tell people. I say, we as humans are worried because we messed up, and we as humans are going to die.
Right.
I said, the Earth itself is going to be fine. It's survived.
It'll be fine.
It's had cataclysmic asteroids hit it. It's deep freeze. We're just that like cockroach that won't die kind of thing. But the only way we can die is if we kill ourselves.
Well, we will. There will be a
day of reckoning soon.
My personal theory is that the population of the Earth will expand to about 10 billion, and then there will be a cataclysmic, whether it be a viral or environmental event, that'll probably cut the population of the Earth in half. And that the entire belt that runs from the Tropic of Cancer to the Tropic of Capricorn will become uninhabitable.
Mm-hmm.
You'll have massive, and again, I'm a screenwriter, so I use my screenwriter brain. I've actually written a dystopian, utopian story that kind of based on that. The idea that, centuries in the future, there'll be this massive swath across the country, across the globe, where it'll be 135, 140 degrees Fahrenheit. It simply will not be sustainable for life. You won't be able to have food. Humans won't be able to live there. Then people will get pushed. There'll be, massive wars over the scarce resources. It's great, science fiction. The problem is, if we continue doing what we're doing, it will be a reality.
It's just sad to say.
It'll be a fight for resources. I mean, we just came back from, we went all the way out to Moab, Utah, and then up to Mount Rushmore. So we went to a bunch of parks. We went to Canyonlands and Arches. And you look at that, and it really gives you a sense, when you consider that this is sedimentary rock that you're looking at, of how old the Earth is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this took tens of thousands of years to create these massive, majestic rock structures. So it really gives you a sense for how small we are as human beings.
And I think I was listening to a professor talk about fasting, and he said, in our whole existence, he's like, if you can sum it up, he's like, we've been from our original, like, cricket or whatever we transformed from,
mm-hmm.
We've only been on this earth about 1.5 million years. And he's like, when it comes to billions that the earth has lived and then billions that it has, we are nothing. Not even a drop in the water.
We don't register. Right.
And then it was just one of those, I sat there and I'm like, interesting. When he puts it like that, yeah, billions, 1 million to 1 billion is like nothing. It's like, why are you even doing?
But if you think about that, you're only going to live 80 years on this planet. You say to yourself, well, you know what? I'm going to eat, drink, and be merry and do what I got to do while I'm here. Because as my mom used to say, you're going to be dead a really long time. So you might as well enjoy it. Yet I still think you have a responsibility to mankind to comport yourself in a way that just isn't stupid. Right? So just get a vaccine. It's not about you. It isn't, your body, your choice. If so, we wouldn't be having a debate about abortion, right? Which is a whole nother thing. And I will tell you, I was talking to a friend of mine about that. And I said, listen, if abortion affected men, right? If this was a man thing, right? Not a female thing, it wouldn't even be a debate.
It'd be done.
Men would never tolerate that at all. They'd say, no, you can't tell me what to do. Right? It's mind boggling, right? you get a vaccine because it benefits everybody else on the planet.
Right.
And people are coming up with these excuses. It was built using fetal cells, or it manipulates your DNA and blah, blah, blah. It's like we listened to the Walter Isaacson book because we were in a car for like 100 hours. If you don't want to read it, go get it on Audible. And it's a fascinating story about how they came up with that CRISPR technology, how it was discovered, and how it doesn't affect your DNA.
That was the funny. I actually had to.
It doesn't.
I had that.
Do you even know what DNA is?
No, they probably don't. That's the funny part. This one lady I had on, oh God, she was a freaking hoot, but it was just, she went off the deep end like, oh, the vaccine is the way the government's microchipping you and tracking you. And I'm like, well, let me guess, it's powered by 5G, which is barely usable anyways. Like, you have to be right next to the machine for it to work.
I mean, you're assuming a huge amount of competence in our government.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Our government, which is probably one of the best governments on the planet, can barely walk and chew gum. And you think that they're going to, in some way, shape, or form, plant nanobots in you? Get over yourself.
Oh no,
you're really not that important. They have your social security number. They can track you any way they want to.
No, like there's one guy at my work. I had to finally like convince him otherwise. He's convinced that there's a reason why there's a silicone shortage. It's because all the governments have come together to make nano chips and track us. And I'm like, oh, let me guess. They're going to track what we say, where we go, and worse, they can track when we have sex. He's like, yes. I'm like, that's called an iPhone in your smartwatch. They see that already.
Yeah, we should hope that they've got time to track what little sex we may be having in our lives. Right? It's like, really? You want to be bored? Okay, follow my sex life. You know, what makes people think that you're all that interesting to the government? You're just a meat sack, is all you are.
Just a number in the system.
They just want you to go out. You're a 9-digit number. If you don't want the government to track you, don't put every stupid thing you do on Facebook. Right? Seriously. Stop taking pictures of your food, because your healthcare provider is going to look at that and say, oh my God, this is what she's consuming. I think we should raise her rates because she's going to have high cholesterol and diabetes.
Right.
It's like you're putting this stuff out to the world and then you're complaining because they use it.
Exactly. And
wake up. And you're just, it's astonishing to me. You're just not that interesting. No. That all they want is your tax money from you so they can use it for whatever little pet project that they have. Right. That's all you're good for. Otherwise they couldn't give two craps about you.
They really don't. The funny thing with that lady though, she was explaining it to me. She's like, oh, you got vaccinated. You're going to be a zombie in 10 years. I'm like, 10 years. How is this going to be? She's like, well, you got the COVID and you got the vaccine.
Better than being dead. I'll take my chances being alive with a vaccine than I will being dead without it. Any day of the week, I will sign up for that.
And I was just laughing. I actually told her, I'm like, if anything, like the vaccinated are going to be fine. That's the unvaccinated are going to get the virus kind of thing. That's going to mutate and do that.
And they're just asking for it to mutate because they're just a warm meat sack that this virus is going to come into, and it's going to say, all right, well, you know what? Let's mutate. Let's mutate our way through the Greek alphabet until we find a really virulent strain that impacts everybody. So just keep doing what you're doing, and it'll be 2025, and it'll be Omega variant or whatever it might be.
Is it Omega the last one?
I don't know. Maybe is it Mu? I thought was the last one, or maybe it'll be Sigma. I don't know. My Greek alphabet's a little rusty. Or Psi. It'll be something. Some other thing in there, and then that one will be really nasty because all those vaccines you created, well, this one's become resistant to it. Keep it around long enough, and it'll figure out a way to mutate in a way that we can't fix it, and then all bets are off.
And that's actually the biggest one I've told a lot of my coworkers and my martial arts instructor, as much as I love him, he's an extreme anti-vaxxer. And I'm like, dude, let's put it this way. And I said it in the most polite way. I'm like, the longer you don't do it, the more it's going to be a problem. And the more it's going to exist, then it becomes more of a problem. And it's just one of those, I'm like, just fucking do it. I mean, like there was one point the government was going to pay you to take a $100 or $200. Like, really? Kind of thing.
At this point, my attitude is pretty simple. I've given up on you.
Yeah,
I've given up on the anti-vax people. I saw that on our little 5,000-mile trip. We went to 3 different major league ballparks. Very few people are wearing masks. What I did was I bought a ticket, and then we walked around and we looked for a big pocket of empty seats. And I said, let's go sit in the middle of this. So we're not even within 20 feet of anybody else. So forget about what tickets we bought. We're just going to go sit there. Nice thing about being old or older is you're invisible. Nobody hassles 60-year-old middle-aged couple. I could have walked into the place butt naked and nobody would have said a word to me. Right? If you're 22, security will be all over you. But if you're in your 60s, you're just some dumb old guy,
or if you wear a safety vest too, they'll never question it.
No, they couldn't care less. So we just sat wherever we wanted. We stayed away from people. We're perfectly fine. If the unvaccinated people want to kill themselves, I mean, I can't stop you.
Right.
If another conservative anti-vaxxer host of a radio show dies of COVID, I mean, how many have to die? Before people will get a clue that maybe this isn't a hoax. Maybe 4 million people and 700,000 Americans actually have died.
That's the crazy thing. So my instructor, he's so anti-vax because he watched some weird vegan documentary about DNA and whatever. I'm like, dude, but he didn't vaccinate his kid for polio or anything because he's like, it's going to make him autistic and sterile. I'm like, no, it's not.
Polio, he's lucky because we have herd immunity for polio, but we don't have herd immunity for measles. We did. But then all that stupid stuff came out about it. And here you have a feckless government that simply won't mandate it. I mean, when we send our kids to summer camp, which we used to do, now they're older, they don't go. But if they didn't get a full-blown vaccine sheet, I don't care how much money you paid for them, you're not allowed in that camp.
Right.
It's just as simple as that. I've had every vaccine known to man.
Yeah.
I mean, when I go to the doctor and I get my physical, it's like, is there a new vaccine I can take? Well, we got shingles. We've got, what was the other one? Pneumococcal pneumonia. I said, give it to me.
I don't know what it is. Just do it.
He jabbed me so many times, my arms were sore for like 2 weeks. I said, I don't care. I said, if there's a vaccine, because I see what science has done, and it's astonishing. Think about polio or smallpox. Think about the millions of people who died from smallpox. We eradicated smallpox from this planet. Do you even understand what a monumental achievement that is for mankind?
I thought it was coming back because
smallpox. I don't think so. I think smallpox only exists in the lab. I mean, there are samples of smallpox in laboratory, but I don't believe that there's been a case of smallpox. I could be wrong. We'd have to Google that. Maybe Google will tell me. But when was the last time somebody had polio in the U.S.?
Okay, so now that one's actually coming back, though. That's sad.
Well, it will if people don't vaccinate their kids. But you get a polio vaccine very young. I believe 2 years old.
I thought it was like year and a half, 2 years. I don't have a kid, so
I've had 3 of them, but they're all in their 20s now. So people need to just stop. I mean, what stupid people have to recognize that they're stupid. But the problem with stupid people is they're too stupid to realize that they're stupid. And they're not. And smart people can't educate stupid people.
Yeah, right? You can't inform the ignorant.
You can't fix stupid. You can't fix lazy. You can't fix ignorant, and you can't fix crazy. That's one of my Snarky t-shirts, by the way.
Oh, there we go. Today's show is brought to you in part by.
Oh my God.
What was it, a joke? Like, did you get corona, my friend?
You know what? I did a test. I went to the Giants game on Sunday when we came back from our 5,000-mile trip. And I caught a little lung infection from somebody. It's not COVID because I did a COVID test. It's like the first thing I thought of. And it's like, no, I still have my sense of smell. There's no way that I have COVID. Plus I'm vaccinated. No, I got an old fashioned, chest infection. They still happen. Right. Everything just isn't COVID. Right. My kids are like, do you have a COVID test? I said, I did a COVID test. I don't have it.
That's the annoying part is like, I did get COVID back in like December 2020.
Right.
But the weird part for me is I just got a body ache and I was just out cold for like a week. I could still smell. I could still relatively breathe. I was like, I get up to walk 10 feet to my toilet. I felt like I ran a marathon, but yeah, everything else, all the classics, the nose, the taste, I had that perfectly fine.
I've had bronchitis before, like once every 5 years. I get it, and there's not a damn thing that you can do about it except to rest and drink plenty of fluids and take some cough syrup because it's viral. And
right.
They could give you antibiotics, but antibiotics don't do anything for a virus, and the chances that it's a bacterial infection are probably pretty small. So you listen to your body and you manage it yourself. You just kind of hunker down, rest, fluids, all the normal stuff. Spend an hour and so on a podcast.
I was to say we're almost going on an hour and 20 minutes.
Well, you may have to do some editing. I don't know how long your shows are. I've done a lot of I think the longest podcast I did was an hour and 45 minutes. We were just riffing on all sorts of different stuff. I've done probably 100 of these since the lockdown. I enjoy them. They're fun.
It's fun. And you can still interact with people and not risk anything.
Yeah, but I mean, that's a whole nother thing. It's one of the things I was thinking about, because I've been talking to lots of different people about, running remote teams and working remotely. What is that going to portend in terms of offices? Are they going to remain empty? And the one thing that Zoom and other things can't do is they can't account for those serendipitous moments that occur in people's lifetimes. I think most people could probably point to, depending on your age, 3 or 4 or 5 really serendipitous moments that pivoted or changed their life, hopefully for the better, but sometimes for the worse.
You never know.
And they all occurred by a personal interaction. And then occur over Zoom or over a phone, more than likely. When they were talking about, the discovery of the RNA and the DNA stuff, a lot of that stuff was done remotely, but a lot of it was also done face to face. People meeting at conferences and developing rapport, and all of a sudden deciding, hey, you know what, maybe it'd be cool if we work together.
As much like you can get a sense of a person like through a video, but there's I call it almost like a sixth sense, like the energy, the vibe you get off a person. There's no way to explain it. When you're in this just sitting within whatever parameter, you're like, this person's just shit because like I'm getting not good feelings from him.
The nonverbal cues, only about 15% of communication is the actual words people say. Mm-hmm. It's just, body language and micro expressions, things that you're not going to get them on Zoom, right? You're just not going to pick up on those things in a remote environment. There's just something to be said for these, the sort of randomness that comes with being in the same physical proximity from people. Mm-hmm. So ultimately, Zoom will have its place, but it should go back to where it was as a kind of a last resort, right? Meaning, sure, having to fly to Hong Kong for a business meeting is a drag. Wouldn't it be great if we could just do it on Zoom? And there will be times where, yeah, that will make sense. But there'll be other times where it's like, no, you guys, you need to be in the same room to get stuff done, meaningful stuff done.
And I think eventually they're hopefully will have COVID under wraps like the flu, but you never know, that's too far out. But I think we're going to eventually go back to the office and all that. It's just with the variances, people don't necessarily want to come out right now.
Yeah, I'm not sure, because corporate America has gotten a taste of the cost savings involved with no longer having to house your employees in physical space, right? If you think about the cost savings for people working from home, they're paying for their own internet, they're paying for their own electric, their own space, all that stuff. All those what they call FF&E, furniture, fixtures, equipment, all that stuff. I mean, my oldest son's been working at home pretty much since the lockdown. He works for a company in New York City, and they didn't even provide him with a computer. I had just built a new computer, because I build computers. It's like one of the other geeky things that I do. I actually don't have them on my website. I probably should. I built probably 8 or 9 PCs. I go to PC part picker. I pick the parts and I build my little Frankenstein machines. And I had just built one, and I said, okay, fine, you can have this one. And it's like a super high speed little unit. Well, that thing cost me about $750 to make it, but I didn't get any money for it. I just gave it to him because this company didn't provide him with a piece of hardware to do his job.
Right.
They don't subsidize my internet here. They don't pay a portion of my electric bill.
That was one thing I told one of my guests. I was on his show, and he pretty much was like, what do you see as trends? I'm like, well, here's one thing I see in general, and I'm not remote, but I told him, are you predominantly remote? He's like, yes, I'm the only one, air quote, in the office. I'm like, okay. I said, what you probably don't realize is you're sticking your employees with their electric. They're home in the heat, so their AC is going to go through the roof. Their internet, they have to buy the best to keep in business. That's $200 extra right there on top of the $600 for electricity. I'm like, are you paying them relatively minimum wage? He's like, yeah. I'm like, they're losing more than they're making.
Well, yeah, it's like driving for Uber, right?
Right.
You're actually making maybe $3-4 an hour,
something like that. Yeah. But that's what I told him. I just told him, like, dude, you what people don't realize, like you were mentioning, I said, there's the equipment, the house, the rent, but I said, there's also all that insurance you have to pay to have employees. I said, a lot of employees don't know that, but I'm like, that insurance and the price to keep the place running, it's the same price. You just gave it to your employees instead, which is quite unfair. Like, are you subsidizing that? And he's like, no. Oh shit, I probably should. I'm like, yeah, you probably should.
Yeah, you probably should, dude. So we'll see how that all shakes out. But I don't think COVID's here forever. COVID will once it's born, it ain't getting unborn. The question is
how long?
How we're in an acute stage of it now, and the acute stage, each month that goes by, they keep dragging it out. The original pandemic, the Spanish flu, as it was called in 1918, lasted basically 2 years. Well, this I think is going to last a lot longer than that.
Oh yeah. There's a doctor at a church my sister used to go to, and he specializes in the flu. Like, he's the guy you go to if you have the flu. Mm-hmm. And that's where he said, essentially, he's like, this is at least 3 years if everything goes according to plan. If everyone wears their mask, everyone gets masks, he's like 3 years. If not, he's like, who knows? It'll get really interesting.
You don't know. And again, as the more people dig their heels in and make up excuses as to why they should somehow be exempted from getting vaccinated, the longer it will take. But if it turns out that these vaccines are effective and do provide a little bit of a Chinese wall, even though there are occasionally breakthrough cases, if you're vaccinated, do you really care? I mean, I know it's cold and hard-hearted, but do I really care if you kill yourself and your family because of your intransigence about getting vaccinated?
No, I don't. I would feel bad if my martial arts instructor went and offed himself because of COVID, but because then I can't continue my training. But
I can't. Yeah. Well, again, now we're back to how does it affect me?
Right.
Well, you know what? If it doesn't affect me, do I really care? That's tough because you want to care. Nobody wants to live a life that's like so cavalier that I don't care about things, but you're painting me into a corner here. You're putting me into the position where I'm so frustrated by your inability to exercise any critical thinking that I just have to throw my hands up and say, well, look, if you want to go kill yourself, go kill yourself. It's sort of like if you've ever had a friend who's an addict, and I've had a few of them, right? Or an alcoholic.
I was an alcoholic at one point.
Really? Well, I'm sure we'll run out of time before we start talking about addiction and stuff like that. But I've lived with a few of them in the past, and I've known some. I had a friend of mine who died of a heroin overdose, and it's like you go through the sort of the 5 stages of the Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Those were the 5 stages of for people who are terminally ill. But I apply those to pretty much anything, any sort of situation. You'll go through those emotional phases. I've had it with people that I know and I like, and I see that they're killing themselves. Right. And then I'll say to myself, I'll deny that they're actually killing themselves. They're fine. And then I'll get angry about it. Then I'll try to bargain with them and say, dude, don't you realize that you got to stop this dangerous behavior? And then I'll get depressed about it. And then eventually you get to acceptance. Well, I'm at acceptance now with the anti-vaxxers.
Yeah.
I've accepted the fact that I'm powerless to change you. I'm powerless to do anything. And so if you're going to die, you're going to die. And I'll come to your funeral, but I'm going to wear a mask.
That's actually kind of what I've gotten to the point is that I'm just like, they're going to do what they're going to do. You can't change them. It's going to be a damn shame. But like my dark humor running joke is like, there's plenty of people. It's like, we're 8 billion already overpopulated. We could just skim it down a couple billion. We'd be fine.
Nature is the most magnificent thing that we have, and it is self-correcting and self-healing.
Did you hear about the virus in India, the Patala
or
Nifala? Yeah, apparently it's like it is truly a bat-based virus. So like everyone was saying, in China they were eating their bats, and this is how it all started. No, this one truly is a bat like infected a human. And its body count's insane. They're like, for every like 10 people, like 6 are dying.
Wow.
There's just literally in India, there's corpses like the plague in the street. They can't get rid of them fast enough.
Bats get such a bad rap. I put a bat house up on the side of my house about 6 months ago to attract the bats.
Well, and in general, bats are good.
They are good because they eat the bugs.
Right.
So I want bats around.
Right. But like if you're in a more third world country where meat's hard to come across, it's not the best protein to eat.
It's less about meat. It's more about sanitation.
Okay.
Right? I mean, it's just not sanitary. That China, if you've ever been to China, it is not the most sanitary place on planet Earth.
It's not. If
you're used to American standards, India is the same way. They don't have the same sanitary standards that we have here. Those are then become petri dishes for all sorts of different
stuff,
different viruses or diseases or whatever. And that's pretty tough to combat. Right? Because nature abhors a vacuum. So nature is going to come up with whatever it comes up with. If and when the day comes that nature decides to extinct mankind because it's decided that we are a nuisance, it will do it.
Oh yeah.
I mean, climate change and rising sea temperatures, and rising temperatures and all that stuff that's going on. It's all part of nature's magnificent plan to continue on for billions and billions of years.
There will probably be a superheating, which will melt the caps, which will then cause the cloud overcasting, which will rain, it will freeze, and then we're back to normal. It'll be a couple thousand years, but it'll correct itself.
I mean, there's a theory that mankind at one point in time was reduced to about 2,000 people.
Probably. I believe it.
Yeah. We don't even know, when you go out west and go to these natural parks and see the dinosaur bones and stuff like that, but we don't know if, 5,000 feet underground, you wouldn't find the remnants of an ancient human-like civilization. I mean, it's possible. I don't know if it's probable, but it's within the realm of possibility. Humans could have been here 1 billion years ago, and then they were extincted for whatever reason.
Or the majority is just like the ones that lived in their cave way below where weather couldn't affect them, and they like did their little crops. There you go.
Yeah, we're back to another sci-fi movie there, right? A Boy and His Dog, I think it was, with Don Johnson, something like that. Yeah, what I can't figure out is what the dinosaurs did to piss Mother Nature off so much, because she wiped them out real quick.
Who knows?
I don't know.
It might have just been a freak accident.
It could be the famous Yucatan meteorite, but I don't know if I buy that.
They could have been like the starting point, but not the actual wiping out, because that's a lot of them, and they adapted quickly too, huh?
Or you know what? Maybe that's just an elaborate hoax, and there never really were dinosaurs. It's just people went out and created those fossils.
It's like we never landed on the moon.
Yeah, it's quite plausible. It's funny because I was talking to somebody about conspiracy theories, and I'm like, think about how elaborate most of those are. Occam's razor tells you that usually the simplest answer is the right one. It's sort of like the origins of the virus, right? Of the coronavirus. I mean, Wuhan was the only level 4 viral research facility in the entire country of China. What are the odds that this virus would have come from that particular place?
So actually, there's a crazy conspiracy one of my friends told me before he stopped showing up for martial arts. He's like, we Americans are notorious for fucking ourselves over. He's like, what if we made it, but we didn't want to test it on our own people, so we kind of just handed it to Wuhan, and whoops, it got out. Again,
you're giving our government and our scientists way more credit than
that's right.
They deserve.
I said, I don't deny the whole we fuck ourselves over, but I'm like, that's a little elaborate. It would take way more than like 10 people.
That the original strain of this virus was found in a cave in 2012.
Yeah.
Because there were a few dozen workers there who got sick. All right. And that samples of that virus were actually brought to the Wuhan lab and were there. The original, the original COVID virus or whatever it is that, and we know that the original cases came from Wuhan in December of 2019.
Mm-hmm.
They tried to infer or blame it on this market, right? But yet they couldn't trace a single of the patient 0, patient 1, patient 2. They couldn't trace them there, right? So logic would tell you had the virus in your lab. Is the easiest, simplest scenario that somebody was careless, right, and infected themselves and then went home, infected 1 or 2 or 3 other people, and you're off to the races.
Yep.
You'll never get China to admit that because they're an impenetrable state, and they're in the business of just sort of talking about fake news. I mean, they're just making up whatever it is, which is fine. I don't I don't care. That's China. We do
Yeah.
the same thing. We make up stuff all the time.
Yep.
But it would be, kind of nice to know where the origins of it were, just from a scientific standpoint.
Right. Or just for the history books.
Maybe there's something to be learned from that. Maybe there's some new protocols that could be put into place to prevent it from happening again. Because humans are notorious for being incredibly careless.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
Part of the nature of it. All right. Why don't we wrap up? Anything else you got for me?
I got 3 questions then.
Oh my God. Lightning round.
So, someone aspiring to be like you, an author, screenwriter, successful entrepreneur / coach, what are some tips, tricks, or advice you'd give them?
Don't sleep. Sleep is for wimps, right?
Okay.
No, I'm kidding. You need your sleep. For me, when I talk to people about investing, I ask them, what are you interested in? Right? What are you interested in real estate? Are you interested in stocks? Are you interested in crypto? What are you drawn to?
Right.
I don't believe that you have to be passionate. Passion is one of those words that people use. Oh, you need to be passionate about what you're doing. I call bullshit on that. You don't need to be passionate. You need to be committed.
Yes.
Right. And you'll have a tendency, I think as human beings, we tend to be more committed to things that we like.
Mm-hmm.
Now there are times where you can be committed to things that you don't like. Like I did triathlon training a few years ago, and I had to go to the gym at 6 o'clock in the morning on Mondays and Wednesdays and Thursdays, right? One day was to run and one day was to swim and one day was to bike. Mm-hmm. I got to tell you, I wasn't passionate about that. I was committed to doing it, but it sucked. I mean, it was like, I'm, 57 years old, and I'm going to the gym at 6 o'clock in the morning to work out for an hour. And I don't particularly like swimming. And certainly not in the dead of winter when it's freezing cold.
Right.
But I was committed to doing it. Imagine if I had really liked it, how well I might have done with it.
The world will never know.
Yeah, the world will never know. Exactly. I wasn't trying to, do Ironman or break records. I'm trying to prove something to myself. So you could ask yourself a secondary question, which is, where are most of my primary motivations? Meaning, are they intrinsic or are they extrinsic? Are you motivated by the fact that you'll post a bunch of stuff and you'll get a bunch of likes? Is that really what it is that drives you? Or are you intrinsically driven to simply compete against yourself and what you think the best version of yourself could possibly be?
That's a more realistic one to aim for.
That one's tough, though, because I would argue that more often than not, people are motivated by extrinsic circumstances. They want to be well thought of. They want to be able to post stuff. They want to be, look at me, look at me, look at me. They're looking for some sort of approval. Maybe they didn't get approval from their parents when they were younger. That happens very often.
Sadly, a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, sadly, a lot. And so they're looking for that, a little pat on the head, a little approval from society. We all do that to a certain degree.
Right.
Right. But that's not enough to sustain you getting up in the morning and to continue to keep you motivated to do something that might be incredibly difficult. Writing a book is incredibly difficult.
It is.
Running a business is incredibly difficult. There are going to be days where it's going to be like a shit sandwich and you need to take another bite. Just how things are. But again, your commitment will be tested.
Many times.
Are you up for the challenge? Is the question. That's a fundamental question you have to ask yourself.
Brilliant. So second one is, wow, I forgot what the second one is. So third question.
What are you having, a senior moment over there?
I totally did.
I'm the one who's supposed to have senior moments.
So for someone who's looking to contact you for just to reach out, say, hey, I heard you on the show, or I want your coaching because I heard you, like, where can I get you?
If you go to henrydaas.com, henrydaas.com, that's my vanity site that has like all my businessy stuff, and then my baseball cards and my screenplays and my Settlers of Catan boards, all the stupid stuff that I do. It's like a combination of kind of almost all the crap that I do. My more specifically business sites, you can go to DAS Knowledge, DAAS knowledge.com. That's like my main business. It's my business coaching site, and my financial literacy and my course and all my real businessy stuff is on that. And if you click up at the top where it says, get my help, you can schedule a call. No cost. I'm happy to talk to people. I get clients that way. I get people to do financial coaching. I'm really kind of pivoting and focusing almost exclusively on the financial coaching. I'm not really taking on any more entrepreneurial coaching clients at this point. I mean, it's I charge 10 grand for the first 3 months for my business coaching. So it's kind of a high bar. If people want to jump over it, I'm happy to have a call. But it's not really where my primary focus is right now. It's really the book and the financial coaching.
That's good. Do you have another book planned up for the future?
I am working on a business book that's called Codfish. It's kind of a weird title, but Codfish stands for customer support, operations, development, finance, infrastructure, sales and marketing, human resources. They're what I call the 7 silos of business. Mm-hmm. So it's really going to be more of a kind of a sort of a memoir my book is, I call my book a money memoir. It's going to be kind of a business memoir, interwoven with stories and philosophies about running a bootstrapped or an entrepreneurial business. But it's kind of low priority right now. It's something I can write when I'm, old and gray, really old and gray. So I write little snippets in it from time to time. I'm also working on a novel, and I actually came up with an idea for a play while we were on our little road trip. I've never written a play. I've written screenplays, but I'm going to probably write a play too. But again, I'll do it in little bits and pieces.
Yeah, it's more sustainable that way.
Yeah, it's more fun that way. It's supposed to be fun, right?
If you take Stephen King's approach, you sit down every day, 7 pages, even if it's a chicken shaking the shit in the yard, do it. It's like, that's boring though. That's not fun.
I mean, look, there's something to be said for that if that works for your mind. I've been in, I was in screenwriting classes with a teacher, and he would set up accountability, like weekly page totals. Mm-hmm. I was always the guy in the back who would say like 15, I'll write 15. And then he would yell at me like, calm down, buddy, easy now. But people had 1 page for a week. It's like, 1 page a week is not a writer.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry. You're going to have to produce a little more work product than that.
I would say at least double-sided or 2 pages.
At least, you got to get a little bit of momentum, but I tend to do it in fits and spurts. Now, every 2 weeks I have to write 3 pages for my newsletter, which is what I was working on today. So that is something that is systematic and something that I do. But when I'm writing for fun or writing fiction and stuff like that, I'll get what I call a creative spasm, and something will pop into my head. And, I keep my laptop next to my bed, which is, terrible for my sleep hygiene. When I say don't sleep, I kind of mean it. So I'll wake up at 3:00 in the morning. Not unusual for me to wake up at 3:00 in the morning, pick up my laptop and write something, right? Just because that's when it came to me, and I'll write for an hour. Sometimes I'll even get out of bed and write, then I'll go back to sleep.
There you go. It works for you.
Yeah. Whatever works for you, figure it out and then do it.
That was actually I just remember what the second one, but it was other than work. What do you do to keep busy during this COVID times? That was it.
Oh,
So,
I since we moved here pretty much full time in April, I joined a local golf club. So
golfing.
I'm a golfer. I play golf. Was playing golf like 3-4 times a week. I haven't played in the last 3 weeks. Kind of taking a little bit of a break from it, but I'll pick it up again next week. Yeah, I found a group of mostly retired guys who play every Wednesday and every Friday morning.
That's
They
fun.
play for like a $15 bet. I'm a pretty good golfer. I'm like probably close to a 9 handicap these days. So I'm more than happy to take their money from them as meager as it is. It's a good, country club golf gets a bad rap, and it deserves it
At times, yeah.
But I spent basically 30 years as a muni golfer, so I put my dues in. And there is something to be said for just being able to show up and play and never have to wait for anybody.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it is. I hear these guys complain about the course. Oh, it's in such bad shape, and blah blah blah. I'm like, you have no idea that if this is heaven, I'm with it, because I can just get off the green and go to the next thing, and oh my God, there's no one in front of me.
Because they're all complaining about the ball in the back.
It's like it is definitely a game that is, and all my kids play, and they were talking to me. They went and played yesterday, my 2 oldest boys, and they came back and they're like, you know what? I shot a 39 on the front, and Michael shot a 37. And then at the turn, we ran into these foursomes, and our momentum just completely disappeared, and our games turned to shit. I said, yeah, that happened. You're going to have to learn how to play when the circumstances are not optimal.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Then that is probably the biggest, not only business lesson, but life lesson.
Oh yeah.
That anybody can ever take away, because, when all the stars are aligned, it's easy. It's like, oh my God, you look around and it's like, wow, this is so easy. But how often does that happen?
Not often at all.
And when it does happen, enjoy the shit out of that. One of the advantages of age is that I know that when it does come around, I am going to drink it up and savor it, because it's fleeting. Because 5 minutes, it's going to turn into a shit show, whatever it might be.
Right.
Right.
Or someone on Twitter is going to say something, and then it's like, well, crap, now we got a new storm.
Now, yeah, I remember one. I wrote about this in my book. I'll leave you with this little bit. It was New Year's Eve, and my wife and I and my business partner and his wife, we went to this place called the Grange Hall, which is on Commerce Street in Manhattan. This is probably in the late 90s. And we had a great year. We had 2 businesses together, made a boatload of money. Everything was great. And I was kind of down in the mouth. And he looked at me and he's like, what's up? I said, the year's over. And come January 2nd, we go back to zero, and we got to start and do this shit all over again. And I was getting really depressed about that. And he looked at me and he said, well, you know what? You think maybe then for one night you can just enjoy what it is we did for the last 365 days before you worry about what we're going to do for the next 365 days. And so I said, okay, you win. I will. And then I just got drunk and danced and had fun and forgot about it.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's nothing I'm going to do. I can't do anything about it. Right.
It is coming whether I like it or not.
It's coming whether I like it or not. So I might as well enjoy myself, savor the flavor from our success. And then when January 2nd comes around, put my big boy panties on and go do it again.
I like how you say big boy panties. Oh, yeah. And the whole lesson is so true. That's the biggest one I've picked up from all the guests I've talked to, is just like, it is what it is. Just, you got to show up every day, whether you like it or not. And inevitably you will be successful. Just time is not going to tell you when.
We're back to timing. Timing
Right.
is everything. Yeah.
Absolutely loved it.
I enjoyed it, Josh. I'm worn out now.
I
Now
know. I got a new record on you too. It's 152 on mine.
I got 152. It's definitely a new world record. It's good though. It was fun. Might
All
have to
right.
be more than one app.
Yeah, probably. It's all right. Appreciate your knowledge and insights. Stay safe and stay well.
You do the same.
Well, congratulations. You made it to the end. You're a awesome person. Not many make it here. So, being the awesome person that you are, can you do me one more awesome favor? Can you rate and review this on whatever podcast services you're using? If you do it on Apple and you leave an actual written review, I have a thing on my website. I will take your written review and post it for all to see. Congratulations, you're permanently sealed on my site. Otherwise, I am trying to do YouTube more and live streaming. I will try to put as many of the YouTube links in the description of the show as I can. So give your boy some extra help over on YouTube. Watch my videos. I just mute it and change the channel, change the window or something. But yeah, that's it. Thank you for being awesome and see you next time.